It wouldn't be shocking if Brigham Young did have a secret wife. He was a Mormon, which meant he had a bunch of wives. Though that would beg the question is why would he have a secret wife?
A Utah man wants to solve a mystery that is more than a century old.
Did Brigham Young, a revered president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, have a secret Native American wife?
Fox 13
Oh, that's why it's secret Native American wife, and the Mormons thought people with brown or black skin were evil because they hadn't accepted Jesus.
News reporter Ben Winslow has more in this in-depth report.
The photograph is of Brigham Young, but who's the woman with him?
If you really look at his face, and it's the closest thing to a smile that you'll ever see on Brigham.
Brent Harridge is a photographer who says he was asked to appraise this daguerreotype nearly 2 decades ago. It's believed to be Brigham Young and one of his wives.
And we looked at all the wives. Nobody quite fit what we were looking for. And so we looked outside of the circle, and we're lucky enough because of some of the details in the photograph, such as bracelets.
He believes the woman in the photograph is Sally Kanosh, and he's pursuing a theory about the Native American woman.
She, in this photograph, was being married to Brigham Young.
Some historical accounts say Sally Kanosh was Shoshone or Bannock. She was captured by a rival tribe in 1847 and was tortured, her hands cut and burned. It's those hands that leads Harridge to believe she's the woman in this photo.
Her right hand was shingled, and the little finger was so damaged that it was cut off. So in the photograph, you can see that this hand, which is under the other hand, she's very self-conscious.
Sally was the first Native American captive purchased by Latter-day Saints when they came into the Salt Lake Valley.
Dr.
So he forced this woman to marry him. That is probably also why he kept it a secret.
Jenny Hale Pulsifer is a professor of early American and Native American history at Brigham Young University.
The person who purchased her was Charlie Decker. And Charlie Decker was the younger brother of Clara Decker, who was a wife of Brigham Young. And so once he'd purchased her, and he claimed he purchased her because she was being tortured and wanted to stop that. And that's a claim that's made with a lot of these. It's kind of a controversial claim, but several people recorded that same story. He gave her to his sister.
They all lived here.
He gave her to his sister. That doesn't sound like you're buying somebody's freedom. That sounds like you're buying somebody as property.
In the Lion House on Temple Square. Some historical accounts say she was considered a servant, but also grew up with Brigham Young's children.
And so they gave her an Americanized name, which was Sally, because she, of course, had an Indian name.
Okay, yeah, she definitely was not treated as an actual person, but a nanny, a servant, a slave, somebody to rehabilitate and make better.
And that's how she came to live with the Young family.
Ellen Jepson, the president of the International Society of Daughters of Utah Pioneers, says Sally Kanosh lived in the Young home for many years until Brigham Young met Chief Kanosh to discuss Indian affairs in Utah.
Brigham Young always said to her, if you want to marry him, you can go. It's your decision. And finally, she did decide to marry Chief Kanosh, and then she left the home. That's all I know, and all I know that is documented.
Harridge believes that's actually a different person, and that before Sally married Chief Kanosh, she was Brigham Young's wife.
He wanted the indigenous people to be part of the greater community that he was trying to establish in 47.
So he married her then?
He did, but he was not public.
Whether or not she was one of Brigham Young's wives, Sally Kanosh eventually left Brigham Young's home and married Chief Kanosh. She died in 1878. A decade ago, Harridge first presented his theory of Sally Kanosh being a secret wife to a conference of the Utah State Historical Society. It got mixed reviews.
I don't know. I would hold that in reserve.
Sure, why not?
Brigham married rather a lot of people, did you notice?
Brigham Young's biography says he had 56 wives by the time he died in 1877, but Herridge believes Sally Knox
Well, it's easy to have a bunch of wives when you're forcing people to marry you.
is one who's been erased.
So, and we're thinking it's up here?
He's now trying to prove his theory by finding Sally's grave and that of a possible descendant and exhuming them.
We think we know where Sally might be, and we're going very slow. We're not trying to offend anything. We realize that exhuming bodies is a very serious thing, and we're trying to approach it in a way that's very respectful to everyone, yet gets to the truth.
I was there when he began looking for her grave in the Knosh Town Cemetery in 2019, where she's believed to be buried. He got permission to use ground-penetrating radar to try to locate her grave. Tombstones have been moved around over time, making it hard to pinpoint her exact location. He's now expanded his search and is enlisting help.
I have seen a lot of his research into this subject, and I believe him. I think he's got it nailed.
Tom Harvey is with the Utah Cold Case Coalition, a nonprofit that primarily works on unsolved crimes and has a DNA lab.
It's a little bit older case than we normally work with. Brent would like to not just depend upon historic research that he's done, but also get the science involved, the DNA involved, and that's one of the places where we can help out.
They're now looking for the grave of someone who might help solve the mystery, this woman, Tallulah Young Wood. She's listed in historical accounts as a daughter of Clara Decker Young. Herridge believes she may actually be the child of Brigham Young and Sally Knosh.
You build trees together and they, at a certain point, come together or don't come together.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says it has no comment on Herridge's theory. The northern band of the Shoshone Nation says it would not support efforts to exhume her. The chairman tells me it's their belief when a Native American is buried, those become sacred grounds. But why Sally Knosh would be removed from historical records, even if she really was Brigham Young's wife? Herridge believes it comes down to politics.
Polygamy is a definite piece of that. I think specifically with Sally is that Sally is indigenous. Brigham believed that it was part of the future, but it was a very new thing.
The Daughters of Utah Pioneers is neutral on Herridge's theory, but Jepson says Brigham Young's life as leader of the Latter-day Saint faith was well documented.
You would think if it had happened that people would have talked about it and been interested in it, and I haven't found any research for that.
Dr. Pulsifer says Brigham Young actually did encourage Latter-day Saint missionaries to marry Native American women to establish trust with tribes.
It wasn't very successful. He had a hard time talking very many people into entering those kinds of marriages, partly because of, widespread cultural prejudice against those kinds of marriages in this time period.
Yeah, they thought people with brown skin were inferior and lacked the belief in Jesus Christ and thus evil, which is why they wouldn't want to marry said people.
Not only on behalf of the men who might have entered into the marriages, but the women who sometimes they were polygamists and their white wives weren't interested in that idea. I'm actually a descendant of one of the very few Shoshone and LDS missionary marriages that took place.
She says there is some record of Brigham Young referencing Sally in his home, while she says nothing would have stopped the church leader from marrying Sally.
I'd need to look at whatever additional evidence he has found and evaluate it. But without that, no, it just doesn't seem very likely.
I feel that her real story needs to be told.
Herridge is hoping his efforts will answer some of these questions. He's planning to write a book about his search.
That's kind of what we hope to do, is to bring this person back into the historical record.